everyone, it's me again, Joey Sal, and so in this video, let's talk about lipids. Well, lipids are a group of hydrophobic biomolecules that play important roles in living organisms. While the primary function of lipids is long-term energy storage, lipids are also used for protection, insulation, and lubrication. They also act as precursors for some hormones and are key components of cell membranes. There are four basic groups of lipids. These are triglycerides, phospholipids, steroids, and waxes. Although these groups differ in many respects, they all have one characteristics in common. They are all insoluble in water. You may have noticed that lipids and water do not mix. For example, notice the yellow-colored oil in the beaker of water shown here. Even if we stir this for several times or even several hours, the oil would still separate out from the water. This is because lipids are hydrophobic. From Latin, the prefix hydro means water, and phobic means fear of. So when you hear that lipids are hydrophobic, this basically means that water and lipids do not work. Let's take a closer look at the category of lipids known as triglycerides. Triglycerides include the fats and oils. Fats such as lard and butter are solids at room temperature and are used by animals for insulation, protection, and long-term energy storage. Oils such as corn oil and olive oil are liquid at room temperature and are used by plants for long-term energy storage. At the molecular level, triglycerides contain two types of subunit molecules, glycerol and fatty acids. Let's take a quick look of fatty acids. A fatty acid has three main parts: a chain of carbon, hydrogen atom called the hydrocarbon chain, a methyl group of one end, and an acid group at the other end. Fatty acids can be either saturated and unsaturated. Fatty acids that has only single carbon to carbon bonds is known as saturated fatty acids. This is because the carbon chain is saturated with all the hydrogen atoms it can hold. Saturated fatty acids have one to several double bonds. Double bonds result in kinks in the fatty acid chains, which affect the melting point of the fat. Animal fats have saturated fatty acids and are solid at room temperature, while vegetable oils have one or more double bonds and are liquid at room temperature. A trans fat is an example of an unsaturated fatty acids, where the hydrogen atoms are on opposite sides of the double bonds. Trans fats are usually formed during the production of processed foods are also common in partially hydrogenated oil. In order to increase shelf life and melting points of the fats, excess hydrogen atoms are introduced to an unsaturated oil. This causes the formation of trans fat bonds in the fatty acid chain. Unfortunately, the consumption of trans fat has been associated with cardiovascular disease and its use has fallen from favor. Now that you understand a little bit fatty acid, let's zoom back out and look at how the triglyceride subunits fit together. Remember, a fatty acid is only a small part of an triglycerides. Three separate fatty acids can have to bond with the glycerol molecules through process of dehydration synthesis. Let's move on to the next journey of lipids, which is phospholipids. Phospholipids are similar triglycerides in that they contain glycerol and two fatty acids. What's the difference is that phosphate group rather than a third-party fatty acid is attached to the third carbon of glycerol. Phospholipids are extremely important, mainly because of their unique properties in regard to water. The phosphate head of the molecule is hydrophilic, or water-loving. This means it mixes well with water. The fatty acid tails, however, are hydrophobic or water-hating and do not mix well with water. Because of these unique properties, phospholipids tend to arrange themselves so that the only hydrophilic heads interact with the water environment, and the hydrophobic tails crowd inward away from the water. These structures is major components of plasma membranes of the cell. Esteroids are the next category of lipids. Esteroids are composed of four fused rings of carbon to which different functional are attached. One well-known esteroid molecule is cholesterol. Cholesterol serves as a precursor for the synthesis of other steroids, such as testosterone, estrogen, vitamin D, and cortisol. Cholesterol is present in plasma membranes where it stabilizes the membrane. The hormones testosterone and the estrogen have small differences in their functional group, but large differences on their effects on an organism. Waxes, the final group of lipids. Waxes are non-polar and repel water. They are found in protective coating on leaves and outer surfaces of animals. Wax is produced in the air of some animals to protect the eardrum. In addition, bees construct honeycomb from wax. Now that we've covered all four categories of lipids, let's do a recap. The four categories of lipids are triglycerides, phospholipids, esteroids, and waxes. All lipids are insoluble in water. The primary function of lipids is long-term energy storage. Lipids are also used for a multitude of other purposes, such as protection and insulation, and as a key component to hormones and cell membranes. So,